Hello, I'm Carolina Araújo. I'm professor of ancient philosophy at the Philosophy Department of Rio de Janeiro Federal University. For some years, I'm involved in the project Dynamis in the History of Philosophy, based at the graduate program for Logics and Metaphysics of the Federal University of Rio. It is a project with an international cooperation with the University of Ottawa in Canada and the Università di Roma La Sapienza in Italy. Recently, the project has joined the CAP Sprint Federal University of Rio de Janeiro project. Dynamis in the history of philosophy may sound very obscure, but it is more interesting than it seems. Dynamis is a Greek word that means power, capacity, potentiality or possibility. It expresses at once a causal and a modal idea. If I say that a power plant has the power to produce 800 megawatts, I say that the power plant is the cause of us having this electricity available. I also mean that it can produce 800 megawatts, but it doesn't need to. It can also reduce its production for, say, 500 megawatts. The association of a causal function and a modal function is what we call a disposition. The power plant has everything it needs to produce, but it can produce it or not, depending on other factors. So dynamis is a dispositional concept. It means what something can do. The concept of dynamis involves several different problems developed along the history of philosophy, such as how do our capacities for perception and intelligence work, the problem of freedom and determinism, questions on possible worlds, and the legitimacy of political power, and so on. My own research on the concept of power is on Plato, with the main focus in the metaphysical concept of power and its application to the theory of justice. Let us begin with some physics. What is an electromagnetic charge? It is a power. It is a mind-independent dispositional property. The atoms may or may not have electric charge. The interesting thing about electrons is that from all the experiments available, they are a negative electric charge. Let me explain this. The method to probe subatomic structure is Rutherford bombardment. Applying it to exhaustion, scientists conclude that there is no substructure in an electron besides its electromagnetic charge. So electrons and quarks are point-like, structureless, simple entities, elements, which are nothing but power. This information challenges a certain metaphysics, in particular, what is an Aristotelian metaphysics that understands the world as composed by substances, things, items. If electrons are nothing but a disposition, the most basic items in our world may be simply a disposition and not something that has a disposition. Can we imagine the world as made up of powers instead of things? This is what the metaphysics of powers study, and this is part of what Plato, as opposed to Aristotle, thought his metaphysics to be. Now you may ask me, what is the relation between electrons, powers, and justice? I say it is not obvious, but this is exactly the reason why this project is part of the CAP Sprint project. The theme proposed by the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro for this project is sustainability. This word, by its suffix ability, refers to a power, the power of doing things that last a long time. In the project, the sustainability refers to our use of natural resources. We are looking for our power to make our impact in the world long-lasting. And of course, if our impact in the world is destroying it, we are failing to have this power. Plato thought about how human beings could make sustainable choices that will lead us to stable and long-lasting standards of action, producing impact that would be in balance with nature and moreover that would bring us to a stable form of politics. Plato thought of our choices that our choices should be seen as interactions instead of actions based on our desire. Whenever I think of my action as an interaction, I think of my power and the powers of all the agents involved in these actions. These agents can be humans or not. For instance, they can be animals or they can be the environment itself. If the world is made out of powers, as you saw, these powers are in balance, causing the world to function in such a way, and our power is one among others. We all act aiming at what is good for us. Plato insists that what is good for us is not as evident as most people suppose. We need to spend some time thinking about what really does us good and what is simply something we desire. For instance, if I'm looking for a snack and my options are a mango or a chocolate, it's pretty clear that the good choice is not the desirable choice. Plato argues that what is good for us is what allows us to flourish, to develop our powers, to enhance our quality of life. He's committed to the idea that we are basically powers to get what is really good for us. Therefore, we have to understand how our powers relate to other powers in the world, because our action is an interaction. Now we are in a better position to see how a metaphysics of powers grounds a theory of justice as a sustainable interaction. I am a just agent whenever my actions aiming at flourishing are compatible to everyone else's power to flourish. This is what I call cooperative flourishing. We are all operating at the same time, but we need to do it in a coordinated mode so that the general balance of powers shall not be destroyed. These are ideas that, to my view, led us to reintroduce the concept of sustainability in the concept of human action, and more specifically in the concept of morality. They were long put apart, in particularly due to some assumptions of the prevailing metaphysics of substances and of the modern metaphysics of subjects. I don't have time to develop this point here. Working at the University of Ottawa in 2020 with the support of CAP's Print project allowed me to write a book on these topics. It's called Cooperative Flourishing in Plato's Republic, and it will be published in English in 2022. I'm also working on a collective editorial project on Platonic power. It unites 20 scholars from different countries and institutions, including our main partners. An online workshop to discuss the work in progress will be held in October 21 at the Logic and Metaphysics graduate program at the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, and a volume shall be published in 2023. It matters that Brazilian universities become more international, and it's of foremost importance to find clear answers for the urgent contemporary problems.